Jordan Love, who suffered a sprained MCL at the end of the Packers' Week 1 loss against the Eagles and is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Love took a hit with his leg by defensive tackle Jalen Carter, not surprised, and was able to walk off with his assistant and trainers. Matt LaFleur announced that the Packers will not put Love on a short-term IR, which would have put him officially out for 4 weeks. LaFleur said that Malik Willis, who they just traded for 2 weeks ago, will be starting quarterback for the with 5th round draft pick Sean Clifford as the backup. There also have been rumors that the Packers having interest in Ryan Tannehill because of the connection with LaFleur in Tennessee. The Packers play the Colts, the Titans, the Vikings, the Rams in the next 4 weeks. Oh, my God. There's a lot. And by the way, we will get into that game quickly because there's only 2 words for you. Actually, there's 1 word for you, 1 name for you that really stood out in that Eagles game, and that is Mr. Barkley. That's all I'm going to say for all you Giant fans. Joe Shane. Oh, by the way, we can win without Saquon Barkley. I don't know. I've been telling everybody that this will be the biggest mistake of the Giants' season, not signing Saquon Barkley. Well, who was right about that? As Saquon Barkley puts up 100 yards, puts up 3 touchdowns, and looks like he's sail away, take me away. I don't know if I'm going to be taken away, but as an Eagle fan, well, as a second, my second favorite team, as a Donovan McNabb fan, Saquon Barkley with 24 carries, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns only tells me one thing, that Saquon Barkley is the real deal. A.J. Brown still had 5 receptions for 119 yards, and Devontae Smith, 7 receptions for 84 yards. I mean, he spread the ball out. Jalen Hurts did not look good. I understand 2 interceptions. That will change as the season moves forward. It's the first game of the season. What I can say is they actually have a real running back. And I'm not saying Swift isn't a good running back, but he is a real running back, and he could go up for Offensive Player of the Year. Not because Michael Parsons says, because when Michael Parsons speaks, it usually is wrong, a.k.a. Zach Wilson. But I will say this. To lose Jordan Love for 4 to 6 weeks, it's bad. It's bad. Thank God they didn't miss him, or they're not going to miss him for the season. But for 4 to 6 weeks in a division with the Lions, with Minnesota, and Chicago, Caleb Williams didn't even throw a touchdown in the game. They won that game. That tells me one thing. Chicago is a good defense, and they have players. They have playmakers. When Caleb Williams figures things out and the speed of the game, I think Chicago could be as dangerous as any team in the NFL. But nevertheless, Jordan Love, who a lot of people drafted in the 5th and 6th round, who some people think was going to put up close to 5,000 yards and put up about 35 to 40 touchdowns, to lose him for 6 weeks is a complete loss. And this team going into week 2, week 3, week 4 against teams that they should beat are not the favorites. And I'm not saying Malik Willis is not going to find a way to be a decent quarterback in the league. He is not Jordan Love. He's not. And even though I think Matt LaFleur is a good quarterback coach, because we saw what he did with Jordan Love, who started off the season last year not that good, and going into the second season actually looked pretty good and was probably the hottest quarterback going to the playoffs and almost knocked off the 49ers to go into the NFC title game against the Lions. Right now, they have to run the ball. Josh Jacobs needs to stay healthy. 16 carries for 84 yards is not enough. He needs to be fed the ball, feed the beast, and give him the ball as much as they possibly can. This offensive line needs to block for him. They need to open up the field so Malik Willis can make some short passes, doesn't have to go out there and throw 70, 60-yard passes to win games. If you have a good running game and your defense is playing at the top of their level and at the top of the game, they can win at least 3 of these games. If they can win 3 games and go even 3 and 4 in the games that they're missing Jordan Love, they can make the playoffs. They have to win 3 games out of the next 6 weeks. If they don't, it's going to be very, very hard. The NFC is wide open. There's no question that it is. But Tampa showing up in game 1 and putting up the numbers that they did with Baker Mayfield, 4 touchdowns and the way he did it, and that defense showing up, it's kind of scary. And by the way, The Saints look pretty good in week 1 too, even though I think their coach is on the hot seat. There's a lot of teams, and I don't think Atlanta's that bad. So I don't know, but this is a team that should make the playoffs, and losing Jordan Love is a colossal loss. Colossal loss. And I think it feeds me to believe that Malik Willis doesn't need to be elite. He just needs to show up and feed the ball to the beast himself, Josh Jacobs. And if he can do that and he can play as well as I believe he could, they can win 3 games.
Yeah, the reason that a lot of people had the Packers not only being a surefire playoff team, but some people had them winning the division over the Lions was the way Jordan Love played in the second half. So they need to really make sure that they can try to win these games in other ways to just try to stay afloat. Because maybe if Jordan Love is healthy in those 4-game span anyway, maybe they lose to the Rams anyway, maybe they lose to the Colts anyway. It's possible.
Maybe they win out.
Maybe. But either way, like the Packers defense and the Packers offensive line still has some issues that they have to figure out in order to make this team consistent, because Josh Jacobs was a very inefficient runner in the first game against the Eagles. This was an Eagles run defense that struggled last year and has a new defensive coordinator.
We all know about struggling, aka the Jets.
Yeah, so. And again, some of that had to do with Josh McDaniels' horrible coaching last year with the Raiders, and Josh Jacobs was an inefficient runner last year too. But the Raiders' offensive line was actually pretty good, and the Packers' offensive line is not much different than what the Raiders are right now. So they have to find something in that regard to make it work. And the same kind of thing with these receivers. They have to continue to be creative with the way they were using with Dobbs and Jaden Reed in that Eagles game. It wasn't always the Jordan Love deep bombs that were winning the Packers offense in the first half. It was the way Jaden Reed was being used running, and Dobbs was used running a lot of the time. So they have to be creative in that regard in order to win these games, because you're right. There's enough teams in the NFC that still have a lot of good depth. I had the Packers as a fringe playoff team, making it out a tiebreaker over the Bucs and the Rams. And now the Bucs, who looked really good in week 1, the Rams, who still look good even though they lost in week 1, they probably have the advantage now. So the Packers are going to have to do it in other ways. And the Titans and the Colts and the Vikings are no shoeing over either. The Vikings beat you with a backup quarterback last year. What doesn't mean they can't do it again? And Tennessee didn't allow an offensive touchdown.
All right, let's bring the boys in. I will go through some of the games. I'll give you my opinion. We'll ask each and every one of them. They don't have to go. We don't have to go through them for each and every other game, but I will get into it, my thoughts, and we'll pick a game and we'll let them speak about it. Kansas City and Baltimore. And Thursday Night Football, we were at Miller's Ale House. We got a chance to watch it live. I will say this. If you're a Kansas City Chief fan, you should be very excited with Xavier Worthy. I think Xavier Worthy is the real deal. 2 touchdowns in the game. If you drafted him in your fantasy league, good luck, because you have a chance to get 12 to 13 touchdowns. I think he has 1,200 yards. I believe he'll have 1,200 yards when they figure things out. And the one thing that I said all season long is they have to find a running game. I think Isaiah Pacheco is going to give him that. And I think Patrick Mahomes, even though he didn't have one of his best games, 20 for 28, 291 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And by the way, for all you Travis Kelce fans and Taylor Swift fans, Travis Kelce looked very old in that game. I know everybody's going to say he's still there's the game number 1, but he didn't look like the Travis Kelce we remember, and he is not breaking 1,000 yards this year. That's all I'm going to say about that. Baltimore needs to show up at the final part of the game and actually keep Likely's feet in. I disagree. I think that should have counted. I would have loved to see an overtime. I think Baltimore wins in overtime. Lamar Jackson needs to make some easy throws, and get him into the pockets. And by the way, get Mark Andrews involved. I have no idea what they were doing in the game. Mark Andrews is one of the best tight ends in football. He finally got back to 100%, and you didn't give him the ball one time. Doesn't make any sense. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, it was bad coaching that cost the Ravens again. Scoops, we were joking about it at Miller's Ale House. Like, there were 4 illegal formation penalties in a game. That says a lot with the Ravens, and they couldn't get Derrick Henry and Mark Andrews involved. Like, I think that's a big problem when you look at it. The defensive coaching I did not really like either. They never made adjustments to Xavier Worthy, and if the Ravens are going to have these issues, they're going to have issues all season.
And I will say this, Rashee Rice had a good game. I mean, hey, as long as he doesn't drive in cars and, go 100 miles per hour and crash them and beat up photographers, hey, Rashee Rice can do whatever the hell he wants on a football field. So, I mean, if you're a Rashee Rice, owner in fantasy football, you should be very happy, even though he didn't have a touchdown. 7 receptions for 103 yards. It looks like he's the number 1 target right now for your friend, Patrick Mahomes.
Get this.
Well, I hope you're wrong, Errol, about Travis Kelce, because I kind of went all in on a 3-peat by the Chiefs, taking Mahomes and Kelce everywhere in my fantasy league. So if I could, at least one of them. And Kelce, he was fine. they just don't need him as much as they used to. And that's why I don't know if he'll get to the 1,000 yards. And let's say maybe he's a little bit slower, but at the same time, he's still so good. He runs those option routes. He can get open still better than anyone at the tight end position. And now you have Worthy with the speed. I mean, on that end around, you saw it. That was crazy. That he shouldn't have been able to score on that. He was that fast. That's a whole nother thing to worry about. Rice, another year better. I mean, this is a team that's better than last year, and they won the Super Bowl last year.
By the way,
as far as
there's a fly flying around in the studio. He's bugging the shit out of me. Excuse my language, but he is. He's bugging the hell out of me. How the hell am I supposed to concentrate? I'm sorry. There you go. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sure Isaiah Likely having size 16 shoes is what's bugging the Ravens fans right now with not being able to stay in. That guy had himself a game. If I started him, I would have won fantasy this week in all 22.
Would have, should have.
He had a 91 rating in PFF. He was that good, and he didn't stay in. If he stayed in, it probably would have been like 100. It was he's really good. And look, Andrews, I don't know if he's 100%. You know, you said he might be 100. He's definitely playing. Doesn't mean he's 100%. Had that car accident. So, it might take him a little bit longer. But if you have Likely on the other side, it's really more about an offense getting too cute with Lamar Jackson. If you have 4 formation penalties in the first week of the season, what does that tell you? That tells you that's a team that's trying to do too much. You got to do your bread and butter. You got to go to the formations that make Lamar successful and run those plays. Don't they got too cute against the Chiefs. And you don't need to do that. Just run your plays. No one can stop Lamar if you do.
All right. So let's get into the Cardinals, and I'll ask Scoops his opinion after my opinion and yours, Speedy, and then we'll let Fish. We'll kind of zigzag through this. The Cardinals game was very interesting, and the Cardinals just dominated the first half. Absolutely dominated the first half. Kyler Murray, it looked like Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals were just going to run away with the game. And it was the tale of two halves because I don't know what happened. I'll tell you what happened. Josh Allen is what happened. It made me sick to my stomach. And Josh Allen, 18 for 23, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's not crazy numbers. What was crazy was Josh Allen and the way he ran the ball in the game. 9 carries, 39 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It absolutely destroyed me. It made me sick to my stomach. I have no idea what was going on in the Cardinals defense. Now, I know the Cardinals defense is not expected to be good this year. And by the way, for all the Keon Coleman haters, I don't know, 4 receptions, 51 yards. I mean, it wasn't a breakout game, but it looks like Keon Coleman actually is a lot better than people thought he was. Shakir actually, or Shakur, whatever the hell he calls himself, 1 touchdown, 42 yards. Looks like he's the go-to man for this team. I don't know what the Buffalo Bills are, but I do know what the Arizona Cardinals are. They're all offense, no defense. And John Connor looked like he exploded. Kyler Murray needs to open up his eyes. Stop talking. Oh, I killed that mother. Got him. Look at that. What happened here? There we go. I got it. Look at that. He's dead. I got that.
You're like Miyagi over there.
I killed the bug, baby.
No, he didn't do it with chopsticks.
No, I got my hands. I caught it. That's good luck, baby. That's good luck. Speedy, I don't want to grab your balls. Okay? I'm staying away from it. But I killed the bug. He's gone. He's dead. Let's not. Exactly. But yeah, it was a tale of 2 tapes. Buffalo, obviously, Josh Allen. Josh Allen took over the game, and the defense actually showed up in the second half. And a secondary that we thought wasn't much of a secondary actually showed up in the second half and actually played pretty well. So Buffalo wins a game that they should win. We'll see what happens when they have to play one of these big teams and actually have to play on all 3 facets of the game. They didn't do it in this game, but they did enough because of Josh Allen.
Yeah, the Cardinals defense, like you said, is talent deficient, but they had a good game plan in the first half of shutting down Dalton Kincaid. He was being bracketed a lot of the game, and I think they knew that Josh Allen was going
to throw him the ball.
Because he was being bracketed, very well covered by Budda Baker and a couple of the other young linebackers. Yes. Bracketed very well, and I think that made Josh Allen rattled in the first half. He was holding the ball a little longer than he should have, and in the second half, he started to be able to adjust more. He ran the ball better, and like you said, spread the ball around to Coleman and Shakir. James Conner was a pest against the Bills defense, but the Bills defensive line got it going in the second half, and then eventually just dominated the line of scrimmage.
How about don't open your mouth and say that Kincaid is your number one guy, and then maybe he wasn't blanketed. I just big mistake. Anyways, Scoops, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't, Errol, going back to what you were saying in the beginning, I don't know what happened in this game. I mean, the Cardinals were up big, and then you turn the TV off or turn it to another game, and boom, there we are.
I was taking a dump, and I was like, oh, Kyler Murray's going to put – it's everything with the dump with me. By the way, I went to the bathroom 6 times in this game, and I was probably sick enough to go a sixth time at the end of the game. I wasn't very happy, okay? By the way, I killed that bug. I'm just wanted to let you know that.
But yeah, I don't know what happened here with the Cardinals defense. They were playing really well on all sides of the ball. I mean, what's it called? Even if you look at in the beginning, James Conner, I thought was playing really well for the team. And basically, I don't know what happened. Like I said, the defense just fell apart completely. They let Josh Allen get too hot. They let him go in and everything. And my thing with Josh Allen too, on top of that, is he also first game back after having Stephon Diggs out of Buffalo. I thought he actually passed the ball pretty well. He got it to a lot of different targets. Yeah, he got it to multiple different targets on a few of his guys over here, over 32 yards receiving wise. So I thought pretty good win for the Bills. I don't know what happened with the Cardinals. So, yeah.
I will say this. I watched the Chicago Bears game. I was on and off with them, and I was impressed with the comeback. They were down, I think, 17-3 at one point. It looked like the game was a complete blowout, and then I don't know what Tennessee did. I think they fell asleep, or they were having a nightmare, because it wasn't Caleb Williams putting up the numbers. He was 14 for 29, 93 yards. He didn't show up. He's the first rookie quarterback to win his first game and not throw over 100 yards or even a touchdown. Okay. It is impressive what the Chicago Bears did defensively. Absolutely dominated the second half, completely shut down a team that was expected to run the ball all over the Chicago Bears defense. Very, very impressed. DeAndre Swift didn't have one of those games that you could brag about, but nevertheless, I'll tell you guys that did have pretty good games. And it wasn't because of the scoring. It was all the defense. Rome Odunze, 1 reception, 11 yards. Keenan Allen, 4 receptions, 29 yards. DJ Moore, 5 receptions, 36 yards. None of their wide receivers had a touchdown. None of them. It was all the defense, baby. It was all the defense. And that is what made it impressive. And by the way, the special teams was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And Eberflus, you stink. It had nothing to do with you, and you're going to get fired if this kid doesn't figure things out. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I was very impressed. This team is, I wouldn't say for real, but I will say this: this team has heart and soul, and I think we could be very impressed with some of the different statures of this defense. I think this defense is a lot better than anybody thought they were going to be.
Yeah, this the Titans defense, I'll give them a lot of credit too. They made some off-season acquisitions, a whole new scheme all at once, transforming it from Mike Vrabel, and they played very well in this game. We were talking about earlier, the Giants were one of 2 teams that didn't have an offensive touchdown. The Bears were the other one, and against that group of skill players, you got to give Tennessee a lot of credit. I think Brian Callahan, that first game that he's coached, even on the offensive side, he looked pretty good in the. We mentioned running the ball. They were efficient running the ball in that first half. If DeAndre Hopkins was healthy and Calvin Ridley learning a new scheme too, maybe that makes a difference at the Titans. But this game, Tennessee definitely outplayed Chicago in that game. Very fluky.
Doesn't matter. They lost.
Fluky win for the Bears. Matt Eberflus, you're right. Should not be proud of that whatsoever.
Fish, your thoughts?
Well, Brian Callahan's dad's a legendary O-line coach and is coaching with them over there. So I think that's really something to remind yourself. This is a really good coach. And the problem that they have right there isn't their defense. Their problem is they have a bunch of fans and front office people who have talked themselves into Will Levis the same way I talked myself into Daniel Jones a couple of years ago. He's not the guy. He is the same level of nothing special as Daniel Jones is. I think they're tying themselves to the wrong guy. The Bears exposed him, I thought, a little bit in this game. I don't think he's very good. I think that's going to be the issue. Tony Pollard ran for a touchdown. He ran pretty well. Wasn't the run game's fault. Wasn't the line's fault. It was on the QB. And I think that's really the issue. Is the Bears defense that good? We'll find out in the future, because if it's not, then Levis is really trash.
Well, we have a lot of games to go through. Let's do this as quick as we possibly can. New England and the Bengals. Surprise. Nobody would have thought that the Bengals were going to lose this game. New England actually went to Cincinnati and beat the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know. Now, obviously, T. Higgins didn't play. He was doubtful, and he didn't play. It did affect their offense, but that's not an excuse. Joe Burrow for 21 for 29, 164 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but didn't do enough in the game. This guy is one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league, and you played up a lousy goose egg. You have to show up week in and week out. You don't start the season like you've been doing, losing losing the first 3 or 4 or keeping these games close in 3 or 4 games and then making excuses at the end of the season that you could have been the best team in the AFC if you started the season strong. There's no excuse. The Patriots, I got to give them a lot of credit. They didn't do much, but they did enough, and the defense actually played well. I was very impressed with this defense. They showed up. Gonzalez is the real deal. Stopping Jamar Chase the way he did in the game. Jamar Chase did not have a good game. 6 receptions, 62 yards. That's not Jamar Chase-esque. I would have expected Jamar Chase to have 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. He didn't show up in the game, or maybe Gonzalez is just really that good. And the Patriots, it really was the matter of running the game, running the ball the way they did with Ramon Stevenson, who's a fantastic runner, 25 carries, 120 yards, and 1 touchdown. Impressive. Very impressive win for the New England Patriots. What was expected to go 0-1 in the first game of the season. Well, they're 1-0.
Well, yeah, Jamar Chase, like you said, is rusty. And Zach Taylor, head coach, should have known that kind of thing. And he was the one that was like, oh, he's going to practice with us. And then he never ended up practicing, and he still hasn't signed his contract. And you have to be able to adjust to that kind of thing. You know he's rusty. Get some other guys involved. Have better game plans than you did against a rookie coach, Jerod Mayo. Yes, the Patriots have a talented defense. This is a rookie coach, and you got badly outcoached by a rookie coach. Robert Saleh has the hottest seat in the AFC. You're not far behind at this rate.
All right, Mr. Scoops, what do you got?
Yeah, the Patriots defense definitely showed up this game right when it needed to the most, and very surprising, very, very so. I mean, nobody thought the Bengals were actually going to lose this game. I mean, in Cincinnati too, with a returning Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase finally coming back after a very hectic and very dramatic offseason. But yeah, that's no excuse for the Bengals the way that they played the way they did. Zach Moss, he ran okay, but I mean, the main thing of Joe Burrow, he didn't throw the ball too well. 29 passes for the entire game is pretty pathetic compared to what we've also seen from Joe Burrow throughout his entire career in the NFL. And, Jamar Chase, like you were saying, Speedy, I don't think it was very wise to have the man come back or, to not realize that the man has a lot of rust, considering that he really didn't practice this past season. His chemistry is definitely off with the rest of the team, not just with Joe Burrow, but for the rest of the team, the rest of his receivers. So, kudos to the Patriots and their defense. And like you said, Speedy, Jerod Mayo being an excellent coach in his first debut game. So
the game that really stuck out to me, or really didn't stick out to me much of anything, was the Carolina Panthers game. Carolina is really still that bad. I don't know what more to say. Bryce Young, 13 for 30, 161 yards, 2 interceptions. I couldn't do anything. Miles Sanders couldn't run the ball. I mean, whoever was running the ball couldn't run the ball. Adam Thielen actually had a pretty good day. He's still the number one, as far as I'm concerned, the number 1 wide receiver. 3 receptions for 49 yards. Jonathan Mingo, again, did not show up in the game. I'll tell you who did show up in the game. Mr. Shaheed, who had 3 receptions, 73 yards, 1 touchdown. Fun to watch. Alvin Kamara, 15 carries, 83 yards, 1 touchdown. And by the way, all those Derek Carr haters, when he was in the game, 19 for 23, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Looked pretty damn good to me. The Saints, we'll see what this defense is going to do all season. It is the Carolina Panthers. But I think the Saints are a lot better than people think this year. So kudos to them.
Yeah, they're talented on defense. Their offense was always my question mark with them because they have Olave, they have Kamara, and like you said, Shaheed finally broke out on a consistent
number
basis.
1 wide receiver on that team.
We'll see. Yeah, thank you, Chris Olave, for your 3.1 fantasy points this week. Oh, God, but nevertheless, like the offensive line, which was so good for years with the Saints, was really bad last year, and it still looked not great in this game. But it didn't matter because the Panthers just don't have much after trading Brian Burns. Derek Brown, unfortunately, now out for the year too. But the Saints, I mean, they got the win. They blew out a team that they're better than, but we'll see if it actually matters.
Fish, you're on mute.
Low fantasy point total also from Deontay Johnson, Speedy, another one of those guys that people were looking at as being a little bit more valuable on the Panther side of things. I think the real issue has always been with the Saints is since they got Carr is the same thing that we saw with him. He was having an MVP level season until he broke his leg all those years ago, and he's never been the same guy because of health. If Carr can stay healthy, it's a different story for that Saints team than they had last year. This is a guy that just needs to stay healthy. He needs to be protected. He's a real gamer. He's a tough guy. He's a real football player. It's just he's kind of been glass for a long time. So if he could stay healthy, a team like the Panthers, they're going for the first overall pick again. Canales has got a lot of work to do to try to fix that offense. Bryce Young at year 2 That's really a problem over there, guys. I didn't. No one foresaw this whatsoever.
No, especially the Alabama fans, as we know. Anyways, the Chargers, Raiders. Well, that was expected, ladies and gentlemen. Boy, was it. 22-10. The Chargers did not have a good game. Okay. By the way, Justin Herbert did not play well. 17 for 26, 144 yards and 1 touchdown. It didn't stand. J.K. Dobbins is the one that really stood out to me. Coming back from another tear in his ACL. No problem for J.K. Dobbins. 10 carries for 135 yards, 1 touchdown, 13.5 a carry. Fantastic. This offensive line, we all expected the Chargers offensive line to be beastly. Alt on one side, Slater on the other. Played very well defending, and they can run the ball. They ran the ball at will in this game, and that's why they won. The defense actually played well, too, in the game, throughout the game. The Raiders, I don't know. Gardner Minshew actually did pretty well, 25 for 33. As 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 257 yards. Zamir White, 13 carries, 44 yards. I mean, definitely above average, but not good enough. And if you have Jacoby Myers, I almost said Jacoby Myers, but Jacoby Myers, 3 receptions, 61 yards to be your leader, it spells bad, bad, bad. Devontae Adams, 5 receptions, 59 yards, no touchdowns. If you don't have Devontae Adams involved with it, it means trouble. And I'm going to tell you right now, Oakland, Devontae Adams is going to be asking his way out very, very soon. So open up your checkbooks, New York.
And open up your eyes, Luke Getsy, because that is a horribly coached offensive game plan that he had. Zamir White, like you mentioned, he was kind of inefficient as a runner. He got it going a little bit in the second half, but they had to realize they had to use him in other ways. Alexander Madison, they tried to spell him out at certain points, but it just wasn't going to work. When you had a game plan for Devontae Adams, like the Chargers did, I'll give the defensive coaching some credit there, even though they're not overly talented. They have to be able to adjust other things. Bowers played well. I was impressed with him, but like you were saying, the Chargers offensive line is what really dominated this game. Joe Alt probably had as good of a rookie debut as you'll ever see. He had 0 pressures allowed against Max Crosby. That's what won them the game.
Scoops, what do you got?
Yeah, so Gardner Minshew really is the only bright light that actually happened this game for the Raiders. I mean, he got going early with his receivers. You know, I saw a few connections with his guys that looked pretty good early in the game, but then there was a certain point that he threw an interception, wasn't really connecting that well at all toward the game. So, I mean, there's a big thing about the Chargers defense. You know, the Chargers defense, I feel like played pretty well in this game. You know, that was a really big selling point. And J.K. Dobbins, the way he ran, especially coming off of how injury riddled he was over in the Ravens. So I got to give it to them. Their running game and their defenses will win them that game.
I think the bright spot for the Raiders was Brock Bowers. That's just my opinion. He actually had 59 yards, six receptions. I think they got to get a little bit more involved and get him more involved in the offense. I think it'll open up the field for Devontae Adams. He looked pretty good when he was on the field. So I think it was Brock Bowers that really was the only thing that stood out to me so far in week 1 for the Raiders. That's about it, because everybody was questioning, the whole thought of bringing in 2 tight ends back-to-back years in the first and second round. But it looks like Brock Bowers is the real deal. Seattle and the Broncos. Well, there's a lot, but I'm not going to get into a lot in this game. Sean Payton, he actually coached pretty well in this game. I was very surprised that the game was as close as it was. Bo Nix did not have a good game. Okay, I'm just going to say that. 26 for 42, 138 yards and 2 interceptions is not a good game. I'm not going to cry about this because Bo Nix actually ran in for a touchdown and actually in the second half played better than he did in the first half. Okay, that's just my opinion. It's going to take a little while for this kid to develop, but I want to see more of Javonte Williams. I don't know what's going on. Why aren't they running the ball and feeding him the beast? It doesn't make any sense. Josh Reynolds, we know what he did for the Lions last year. If he's leading as far as your wide receiver and Cortland Sutton isn't, it tells me one thing. They don't know what they're doing, or they don't have a number 1 guy or a true number 1 guy. As far as the Seahawks are concerned, well, Kenneth Walker is a beast. We all know what he is. 20 carries, 103 yards and 1 touchdown. And Tyler Lockett actually showed up in the game as well. What is going on with DK Metcalf? And don't give me, and I understand Patrick Surtain's on the field. DK, you say you're one of the elite wide receivers in the league. Go out there and beat Patrick Surtain. You didn't. And honestly, you were lucky to win this game. And I'm sorry, Geno Smith did not have one of those good games because he didn't look good. So that's just my opinion. They were very lucky to win this game and come out a winner.
Yeah, the very average performance overall with the Seahawks. I think they still have some issues in the trenches both ways.
And McDonald made some bad mistakes as a coach.
They were missing some offensive linemen, obviously, but their offensive line still wasn't as good as they could have been on the interior. And their defensive line, which they kind of fixed in the offseason a little bit, but then they lost their top pass rusher with Nwosu. They had to make some adjustments there. I don't think they did it well enough there, but they did do well stopping the run, like you were saying. Javonte Williams did not really have a great game in that one. And they did well against a Broncos offensive line that has some good players, but I still think it's kind of a mediocre team, Seattle, right now. I had them 7-10 at the start of the year, and they kind of showed that.
Fish.
Well, I hopped on the pick a defense for the weekend and took Seattle this weekend because I just figured rookie quarterback first week. There's no way he's going to be good, and that's basically what happened. I do think Surtain is just that good, man. Like Surtain is able to lock down a guy like DK Metcalf, who's a power speed guy. He might not be the best route runner. He's not a bad route runner. He's just not Surtain level. You're not going to be able to fake out Surtain. You know what I mean? So it's just really an impressive job by some guys to make this a little bit closer than it was, despite the fact that we really didn't have really great offensive play. So for me, if I'm a Broncos fan, I think this is, a good learning experience for Bo Nix. I think that the defense is much improved from where it was a year ago. So, you got to trust Peyton in the process. It's just going to take a while. He always likes his guys. That's why Javonte Williams was drafted before Peyton was there. Don't expect him to get the ball. He was a big faller in fantasy drafts, Javonte Williams, because people are like, Peyton, I don't know if Peyton's going to go with him. They like this other kid, McLaughlin. It really could be one of these things where Peyton just wants his guys. And until he gets them, it's going to be kind of rocky over there offensively.
Oh, the Commanders and the Buccaneers. So we know what the Commanders are. We didn't know what the Buccaneers are. And the guy that really showed up once again, I think had the best week out of all the quarterbacks, and that is Baker Mayfield. 24 for 30, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Baker actually even ran for 3 rushing carries for 21 yards. Baker was very impressive. And Mike Evans didn't have 100 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. Thank you, Mike Evans, for giving me those touchdowns. I needed them. I was just very impressed with this offense. This defense showed up. We know what they are defensively. We didn't know what they are offensively without Canales there. Canales goes over there to the Panthers, and they didn't look too good. It didn't matter who the offensive coordinator is because Baker Mayfield, I think, has figured things out, and he is looking like the best quarterback. I wouldn't say the best quarterback, but one of the better quarterbacks in that class. I mean, that was a pretty good class. You have, obviously, Jackson, Josh Allen, and him now. Who would have thought that? Everybody thought Rosen and Darnold. It's very impressive what Baker Mayfield is doing right now. I've been a Baker Mayfield supporter. I want to see Baker Mayfield continue with his success. Just amazing. And the Commanders, a lot of questions. I do like what I saw with Jaden Daniels. Okay, he's young, 17 for 24, 184 yards. I think out of all the rookie quarterbacks, he looked the best. So that says a lot. Not much, but enough. And by the way, he ran for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. So we'll see what Jaden Daniels is. I think if there's anybody that can figure things out, it's Kingsbury. I think Kingsbury will figure this out with this kid. Austin Eckler was the leading rusher. I expect him to be the leading rusher on this team. All those Brian Robinson fantasy drafters, big mistake. I'm just speaking the truth here. I was very impressed with the offense of the Buccaneers. That's really it. I mean, Baker Mayfield was the answer, and he might be the answer for this Buccaneers team. I think they win the division. I never would have thought that because of Atlanta when Atlanta did. This team is the best team right now in the division.
Yeah, and they improved their offensive line. They definitely showed that. Now, granted, Washington's defensive line's not overly good either, but they still have a couple good defensive tackles. And the Buccaneers, that was their question mark last year, and they were able to make it work. Now the skill players, too, are very deep as well. In addition to Evans and Godwin, Jalen McMillan as a rookie played very well in that game, too. I believe he got open on more than half of his routes that he was on, and he got a big snap count. Cade Otton played very well, too. Rashad White, his efficiency's got to get a little better, but still has been a good overall well-rounded scrimmage back that they need. And like you said, that defense did a very good job on Terry McLaurin and did a good job rushing.
How about Bucky? Good old Bucky. Bucky Irving. 9 carries for 62 yards. What a name. Bucky likes to sucky. Deshaun Watson.
He was my sleeper in a lot of drafts, Bucky, this year. I don't trust Rashad in the run game. I think he's going to be just a pass catcher eventually.
Bucky likes to sucky. Your thoughts?
Yeah, considering I was a Baker Mayfield hater about a couple years ago, I can't really hate too much on this right here. I mean, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns. It's definitely clear that Baker Mayfield has connected well with this team. He has great chemistry, and I gotta agree with what you just said, Errol, just now. After what the Falcons did, honestly, I honestly thought that they were going to be a runaway for the division, but right now it's obvious that the Buccaneers are clearly leading that pack. And I have to say, I thought Jaden Daniels played pretty good for him being a rookie QB. Yeah, he probably should have thrown a little bit more, but I thought for his first game as a rookie, I thought he played pretty solid. So,
and he's got a good offensive corner. I think Kingsbury will figure it out with him. I think they made the right choice of bringing Kingsbury in. And he's going to probably get a coaching job at the end of the season because he's a good offensive mind. Say whatever you want. He might not be a good head coach. He's a good offensive mind. I think the game of the week was the LA Rams and the Lions. This was a fun game to watch. It really was. And say whatever you want. Jared Goff didn't have one of his best games, but when he needed to make the throws, he made the throws. What's really bothers me is Nacua going out the way he did. Puka Nacua going out with 1 carry and 7 yards. It's a shame he's going to be out 4 weeks. Obviously, the leg injury, he was dealing with the leg injury before the season. But the guy that really stood out, and I'll say it, Cooper Kupp, baby. He was doing it, and I thought he was, and that's why I drafted him in the Beavs League. 14 receptions, 110 yards, 1 touchdown. He's back, baby. And I'm going to tell you this right now. The Lions, as much as they won the game, what stood out to me is the Rams can compete with them. The Rams can compete with anybody. Don't be surprised if the Rams compete with San Francisco to win that division this year. They're real. I think this is a young defense. They put pressure in the second half. The Rams. And by the way, what happened to Ahmad St. Brown? What happened to him? I mean, he didn't. And I'm saying this right now. St. Brown is everybody's Ross St. Brown. 3 receptions, 13 yards. It says a lot about the Rams secondary. They're actually pretty damn good, shutting him down the way they did. I was very impressed with even though the Rams did not win the game, I was more impressed with the Rams losing the game and playing the way they did than the Lions winning. So, just my opinion.
Yep, this was my pick for the NFC Championship game, and it showed every bit of it. It showed. And the Rams, I've always said this pattern since McVay's taken over. When they bring in new defensive coaches, they don't miss a beat. Like, whatever new scheme, whatever new concepts they bring in. Chris Shula, Don Shula's grandson, did a great job coaching in the game. They brought in 2 new linebackers after training Ernest Jones. They did a great job against the Laporta. They had a great game plan for St. Brown. Give credit to them rebirthing Tre'Davious White. He had a great game in that one.
So did Williams. I'm not going to. Jamison Williams actually had his best game as a pro. Second best game as a pro. So.
Sure. But like he was really the only one. David Montgomery had a great overtime find. But the Rams did a lot of good things very well in that game. Their offensive line held their own. And Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp had a fantastic game.
When Nacua comes back, they're scary. I mean, when they were both on the field, they were scary. And it looked like Matthew Stafford was just, who do I want to throw to? Who do I need to throw to?
Yeah.
Who do I want to run the ball to? It looked pretty easy. If Matthew Stafford stays healthy and Nacua comes back healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams go to the NFC title, maybe even the Super Bowl. This is an explosive of a team we've seen. I think they're fun to watch. I was very impressed with the Rams than the Lions winning at home. That's just my opinion.
And the Lions offensive line did hold their own, and they were able to stop the run. Rams were not able to get anything going, but the Lions were doing the same thing a lot of this last year. Let one guy go off, and then after that, make a difference. Yes, very impressive catching the bug. But the Lions got their physical grind.
Don't believe me? Stay away from me, bugs. I will kill you.
Yes. The Lions got their physical grind going in the fourth quarter.
I would.
David Montgomery.
You can take a picture of that.
David Montgomery did exactly what you did to that bug in overtime. Just broke a lot of tackles and just dominated overtime.
Here, this is for all the fans. I wasn't lying. I killed Mr. Buggy.
Jamison Williams really flies around the football field. You know, he bugs all the defenders trying to cover him, and he just, you know, it's like he just darts and buzzes the flat. You know, they try to buzz the flat on him. They can't do any of those things. He's just so quick. I don't know. I'm out of bug analogies there,
you
fellas.
4 of them in.
I'm bugging out,
tried.
baby. I'm bugging out.
That was good.
I worry about Nacua. He fell in the draft farther than people thought because of injury worries about him. Look, an MCL in the knee You can come back in a month and be okay. Let's just hope that, because he's a special talent that, is one of those guys that was one of those diamond in a rough finds for the Rams. They can pair him with Kupp for the next bunch of years and be lethal with Stafford there the last few years of his career. It just is such a beautiful setup. Really a great football game.